I'll
Yeah, if
record.
you can just
I've
record
just
so I can
started
just go back
recording
through
now.
that logic with you.
Yeah, I've started recording now. I just need to
Okay.
remember there'll be 2 recordings, one really short one and one long one. All right, look, no, I think do you want me to share the screen or do you want, do you want me to share the screen or you two? I think it's better
If you
do.
if you can just go back through those couple of steps you just did, that would be awesome.
Sure.
Then you can share the screen.
Cool. Alrighty. So we were looking at the changes that you made. They were here in the BLoC business logic code. I've pulled your changes down now. So
Cool.
even though it's all object orientated and, you know, we have objects and that's cool. And even though we're using like weird abstract stuff like events and even weirder and more abstract stuff like blocks, in fact, you know, it's mostly all just functions and variables still, really. So, and like, I mean, you don't have a background in programming. If this was not a typed language, these lines would look like this. Okay. And what we've got here, this is a function definition. We give it a name, we list all of the parameters, and then we use this special keyword that says it's an asynchronous one, an asynchronous star one. But just ignore that for now because I'm not, just ignore it for now. But basically, a function always looks like this. Function name, and then brackets, and here's all your parameters, and here's all your logic. Okay?
Yeah.
But this is a typed language, so we tell it, before we give the function name, we say what kind of thing it's going to return. And this function returns a stream. And a stream is just something that can change. Stuff comes down the stream. And the thing that comes down this stream are Psi test save states. So,
so is that kind of setting up like a listener, sort of like it's
kind of exactly like that. Yep. You need to. Listeners will listen to a stream in this context. There are other things that a listener could listen to, but yes, yeah. And so if you're listening to this stream, then the things that come down the stream are these Psi test save states. Yeah. And they can be, there's the same kind of model with the events, actually, the same kind of setup. So basically we have an abstract class, and an abstract class, you can never have a variable that is an instance of an abstract class. You can never make one. But what you can do, because this extends equitable, is that how you would say that?
I would say equatable.
Equatable is what it, absolutely, not equitable. Because it extends equatable, you can take one Psi test save state and compare it to another Psi test save state. So down here, this is just the abstract one, but then these are the real different states that we have. You can have, sorry, these ones here. You can have Psi test save initial, or you can have Psi test save create in progress, or create successful. So these are the actual versions of this thing that can exist.
Which are all linked to kind of some kind of logic or some kind of user interface thing changing.
Well, here, just before we get to there, see, so this function returns a stream of these things, okay? Of Psi test save states. So it's always going to have Psi test save states, but it might sometimes give you a Psi test save initial, or it might give you a Psi test create in progress, or successful, or failed.
Okay.
In fact, that's the only, oh no, yeah. So basically, if you're listening to this stream, you'll be able to say, all right, hey, I got a new thing. Is it one of these, or is it one of these, or is it one of these? So that's the meaning that comes back from this thing.
Yeah. So is it true to say that those other save states are types of Psi test save state?
So look, it says they extend their what do you call that? The object oriented term is they are
Class or something.
descendants, maybe. But yeah, it's like, so the classic kind of example in object oriented programming is maybe, say you would have vehicle. Okay, the abstract class might be a vehicle. Okay, and then you might have something that extends that, which is a car, and something else that extends that, which is a boat. Okay, and you could do stuff like, you could have your code that says, if my vehicle moves between point X and point Y, then measure the distance between those 2 points. And you could even, your abstract class of vehicle could even implement that as a function. So every vehicle has the function, how far have I traveled? But you could never in your code say, give me, I want to create a vehicle variable. You could only create a car or a boat.
Yeah, okay. Okay. And that's why you use abstract class.
Yeah, it's actually, there's a little bit, I'm actually blurring things a little bit. That's actually more inheritance. Whereas, sorry, in Dart, difference between extends and we've got implements as well. Is there inherits? Don't want to go off too much.
Okay, but I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah. No, I think that is right. I just think that extends rather than inherits is... Sorry. It is. Extends is inheritance. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So actually what I said was all relevant and valid.
Okay.
All right. And then I feel like that's not the same stuff that we went over. I know, we spoke about then, okay, and the parameter that's here, so the parameter name is event. So when this function is called, you pass a parameter in, and inside the code, we can refer to that as event. And the type that's passed in is a Psi test save event, which is also an abstract class. And you've got then the instances of that. But these Psi test save events always have a property called a Psi test, which is our app internal representation of one of these tests, kind of the core of the app in some ways.
And they get created on the like actual widget.
That's right.
Level
But you know, you could kind of create them anywhere. It's perfectly valid for me to say var new test equals Psi test, just like that. That's totally valid code. Also, just a little aside, note that that is identical to that, okay? So when you type var, basically Dart is figuring out the type, and it's able to figure it out pretty easy because you're setting it to this straight away, right? Whereas here I'm being explicit and saying this is what it is.
Yeah, that would be the C code, I think. You wouldn't use the new word, you would just say object type, name of the variable, and then what it is. Oh no, you wouldn't even say equals, I think, in the end. You would just say Psi test new test.
Well, no. Look, that's the variable definition right there.
Okay.
That's same. So that is different to that kind of. It is a bit different in that up here where I'm defining the parameter, this says that the parameter you pass to this must be a Psi test save event. Whereas if I had you could kind of pass whatever to it.
Mm-hmm.
And unless the other code further down is essentially going, it needs to be this. And actually that's really what's happening. Dart is actually figuring out the type of it as you use it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it's easy for us to understand.
Yeah, and also here's the thing, right? Here's an interesting thing, maybe. See how, yeah. Look at this. See how this creates Psi test to state. We pass in a Psi test save event.
Mm-hmm.
We could actually be more explicit and say, actually, you need to pass in a create Psi test. So that's, if you will, that's almost like a more explicit definition. So like a variable is completely generic, or you could say, well, actually, no, it's one of these.
Mm-hmm.
Or you could actually say, like, see, if it's set to this, then you would be able to pass in one of these, or one of these, or one of these, and that's all valid.
Right. Okay.
Whereas you could set it to this, and then only that is valid in there.
Mm-hmm.
But then your code needs to, respect that. So if you were to try and do something that type of thing didn't support, it would fail.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, coming back to here is our variable definition. And then when we say new test equals, that's calling the constructor, that's making a new one. An equivalent of, say, an integer, you might say integer new int, and then you'd say new int equals 0. That's, kind of a similar thing that we're doing there.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can just do it like that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. Yeah, cool. Thanks for the explanation.
The other stuff we went over before, we spoke about when we're actually calling this thing, and that's in here in the sender screen. I'm going to fire this up in the background too, so we can refer to it. And we also spoke about this. We said, look, the sender screen class is essentially wrapping the sender screen. So that is like we're putting some other stuff around, and then here is actually where most of our widget logic is inside of this underscore sender screen. Underscore in Dart makes it private. In C++, you would have seen you mark something as public or private. In Dart, and I love this actually, it's a convention in JavaScript to use an underscore to mean it's private, but that's just something that people started doing because you don't have public and private. And then they've basically just rolled with that, and it's so readable and simple, but it's evolved out of what other languages and the industry's done. But the sender screen, it does the following. It provides a scaffolding, so it's a new screen, including the title bar. Then we do this left BG wrapper, and all that is putting a background on the page. And then we've got the stream builder. This is the stuff we were talking about. We're saying this stream builder, and it's a stream. It expects a stream just like the kind of stream that we were looking at in here, except instead of that stream having Psi test save states, this stream is going to have query snapshots on it. Okay?
Okay.
And a query snapshot is basically a database record.
Okay.
So basically the builder in here, this reruns, this rebuilds, I should say, every time this query snapshot is changed because of this stream that we're listening to. Okay, and this is implemented by Firestore, and that's a direct, oops, this is not what I want to be connected to. So that's wrong. This is a direct connection to our database here. So we're hooked up to one of these things, and the Firebase code that we've brought in here and we're using, it maintains the connection to this, and anytime the server changes, that change gets pushed out to the app, and here in the code is where we say, anytime the database record we're looking at changes, put the new version of that here. And
Ah,
it's available then in the builder, it's available here as this variable snapshot. And snapshot is of type async snapshot, which is something that, you know, Firebase is made up, but it's basically like it's a snapshot that can change. And then it's like, well, what's it? Yeah. And look, I don't know the specifics of this, but I'm just saying this is a variable type. Sorry, this is the type definition. But we've got inside our builder function here, we've got this snapshot property, and we can do something like say,
there at the end, if it's got a snapshot.
yeah, right there. That's right. If there is, well, yeah, snapshots.data.documents. So
No, the one
that's,
above, the line above.
yeah,
Yeah,
this one. Yeah, so it's kind of, these are a couple of little functions I made. We say if the Psi test is not available, and this is kind of checking. So a snapshot, as Firebase created it, or something they're using, probably actually, it's probably comes from something else. Yeah, it's a default widget Flutter thing, an async snapshot.
Okay.
You saw how I saw that then, yeah? I just like, you know, did the usual click on there.
Control click.
Control command click, yep. And then I'm like, oh, look, this is actually in Flutter packages, blah, blah, blah. So that's actually not a Firebase thing. That's actually a fundamental Flutter thing. But I reckon the more derived type here, the query snapshot, actually, look, I don't even need to click on that. I can see it here. That comes from Cloud Firestore. So that's a Firebase thing.
Okay.
Okay,
so you're saying I'm only looking for Firebase snapshots.
No, look, I'm kind of going all over the place with this. The point I'm making here, I think, is that Dart is this awesome, amazing language. Everything we're kind of doing here is working with, and this is coding too, right? We're working with abstractions on abstractions. So, you know, the Flutter developers have made this async snapshot. The Firebase developers have made a query snapshot that utilizes that. And then our code is using that. But it's all Dart down underneath. And you can go down and see how they've implemented every single bit. And it's all just objects. So like, we're talking specifics, but fundamentally it's all the same. It's all objects, variables, and functions.
Okay.
Yeah, and actually that's kind of, for me, the way my brain works, I don't know if I'm old or what, but I find that much simpler, the fundamental level. I like to understand things at that level, and I tend to struggle more than the younger folk with these higher level abstractions. But anyway, I'm doing my best. But anyway, this Psi test not available. This is a function I made. If we go into there, that's in app lib components live Psi test stream.dart. So I made this file, and I made this as a little shorthand because basically anywhere that I've got code where I want it to dynamically update whenever the database changes, whenever the Firestore database changes, I've got to do this same bit of code here. I've got to have the stream builder. I did spend a little bit of time trying to make this a single generic wrapper that I could use everywhere, but I didn't quite get it. So instead I've kind of got this same block of code anywhere that I want to have the screen dynamic based on the database state. Okay, so you'll see this kind of little chunk of code in a few places. And these are the steps that I'm doing. But but I thought, well, look, that's always the same. If I wrap these 3 lines into a function, then it means this chunk of code that I'm using everywhere is a bit smaller. I just have that instead of all of these lines, plus in fact all of these lines. So what I did, I made these 2 functions. This one is the Psi test not available, and it checks for a few error states, right? The snapshot, if it has an error, or if we're not yet connected to the database, or this one, if the number of documents that we have is less than 1, that is if there's
there's nothing in there's nothing in there. Yeah.
So basically it says return that or that or that. So this is going to return a true or false. If any of these are the case, it's going to return false. So we say if Oh wait, did I say that right? Psi test not available. Oh yeah, so if it has an error, it's true. If it's waiting for the connection or if there's no, those are all true. So if the Psi test is not available, then return this object. So if this happens, if that's true, this happens, and these next two lines of code don't even go, okay? So we don't even get to this whole sender screen thing if any of those conditions happen. One of those conditions were...
Why is that syntactically? Is that because they're below the return statement?
Yeah, yeah.
Ah, okay. So if you put in return, it will also end the function.
That's right. That's exactly right. Exactly correct.
I didn't know that.
It comes back from the function. That's done. And this is a function here. The builder parameter is a function. I'm just going to check that I'm not being too noisy. One sec. Okay, that's all good. But yeah, that's right. So this is a function. When you do a return statement, and the function never happens. But what do we return here? Note that what we return needs to be a widget, because that's this. And I made this function as well, where I said, all right, if it's an error, can you hear me, by the way?
Yep.
Yep. If it's an error, then return a widget that is a text thing that says error. Here's my error. If there's, oh, sorry, Nick, it's not that would be if it's less than one, but I'm saying if there's greater than one. If you've got more than one active test at the moment, actually, that's a problem.
Okay.
And what I do at the moment is I say more than one active test. All right, so this should never happen, but you know, probably we should handle it better. So I'll just put a little to-do thing there for now, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at the moment, if you were to make 2 test records with your ID on them, instead of all of this, which is the contents of the underscore sender screen widget, instead of seeing all of this, you would instead see this, that text, more than one active test.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're still connecting, then it says fetching existing test data. And that means you might actually see that for a moment. Yeah, if your eyes are really quick.
Yeah.
There, just for a second it flashes there. It doesn't take long, but that's, you can see how nice and good that is. If the connection stopped or something, it would kind of sit on there. So just, I'm not going to attempt to explain that better. But does that all make sense so far?
Yeah. There's like another level now where it's the actual building of the widget, but
that's right. But yeah, but we've kind of got these.
It's a bit more complicated, but otherwise, that all makes sense.
And so just with that one line there, because I've moved these out into functions, we like handle error conditions and loading conditions and stuff there. But if the Psi test is available, which will happen even if there's no test that you've got active, okay? In that case, it would be snapshot.data.documents would have a length of 0. Okay, so it would actually still pass that test. So even if you don't have an active test, you still get past here. It's just the problem isn't that it's not available. It's just it doesn't exist. I could have named that differently. Could have explained that a lot better. But so this is checking for those conditions that we looked at. But even if you don't have a test, you'll come to here, and then we call this create test from Firestore, right? Now this is another function. I've got it in the same one. I've just made this live Psi test stream.dart, and I've just put a number of functions and things in here that I use. What this one does, first thing it does is this. If the length of the documents, if the number of records I've got is 0, then return null, okay? So that's where there is no existing Firebase one. Current test will be set to null, and we run _sender screen passing in null. And then down here, it'll, because we pass in that parameter current test, down here it's going to be equal to null, and that's where you'll see this button that we see there.
Okay, that's allowing you to create one.
Yeah, but if documents.length is 1, then we come in here and here we're making a new, here I'm creating all the questions from the data we've got, and I make a new Psi test object, okay? And I put on the Psi test object the information I got from the data. Now this is all coming from Firestore. Yeah. So I basically, I'm creating a new Psi test right here. That's the constructor. And then I return it. So the output of this is that Psi test record. And that's what gets passed into the sender screen in that case. I think it's going to be best if we do stuff too.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
No, that was really helpful, I think.
Okay, great. Cool. So have you had a try of, wait, should this work now?
Yeah, it should work. And it'll just create one of those
It goes to that
documents.
thing. But I would have thought that this screen would have changed. That's how it was supposed to work. That's never been tested.
No, that doesn't work.
Yeah, so why is that? Why are we no longer, why is that not being found? So I'm gonna clear this out. Just to,
the reason it's not being found for me is because if I actually removed myself on the authorization on Firefox, on that collection created, then on parties I put an X in front of my user ID.
But
and that used to change it.
But you wouldn't have had it. Are you all right if I delete all of these, by the way? I'll just leave that one reference one.
That did it, Chris. Now it is working properly for me.
As in, this button changed?
Yeah, now I get to this whole thing of you have a test underway with 5 questions left to answer. Continue test.
Why didn't that work for me?
And like I say, it changed to working for me when that screen behind there. See there? I changed that.
Not if I delete these other ones, just because I'm getting a bit confused.
Yeah, you just leave the bottom one. That one. Okay. No, one. Leave. Wait a minute. Yeah, just leave the very bottom one. ZTL.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. I would really like a bulk delete. I don't think there is such a thing.
Yeah.
Mind you, this is a pretty nice interface, really. Okay, and I'm going to, just to kind of get it out of my way, I'm going to temporarily disable the share part of it, and I'm going to do that just like this. So create test. And there it is, there's the test. It's got that ID as one of the parties, so why isn't that getting picked up? So let's have a look here at the stream that it's getting. It looks, here's the query. It's the test, and it looks for where the party arrays contains the global current user.uid. So what is my global current user.uid?
Well, it's in that record you just created. It should be that KAN thing.
Yeah, so I just put a breakpoint here. I know that it should be available there. So oh, that's the query. Wait. I want this, don't I? KA and it ends in N2. Mm-hmm. All right, KA N2. There it is. Why?
Is it possible it's only reading the other one for that test? Like, because seriously, if I change on the final document that you didn't delete, if I change, like that's me, right?
Mm.
Nicely, mine is called N and yours is called K. So if I put an X in front of that N, which is what you told me to do that, then it will stop and that function will no longer, then it'll go back, it'll be broken. But if my name is there, then it says there's a test. So it's only seems to be checking that record.
I know what it is actually. Look at this. This is essentially our database query. All right. Mm-hmm. We say, show me the collection test where the party's property is an array that contains this ID and where the status is equal to underway.
And mine doesn't say underway.
Nope. This one does. But this one doesn't.
Yeah.
So just get rid of this one. And let's change this here so that it does. Let's also get rid of entry 2. That doesn't really make sense. Thanks for refreshing.
Doesn't it make sense to have the receiver, I thought? No.
Well, we don't have a receiver yet. We'll need to put that on later when we've got the other thing. These also don't really, like that's great. But what it should have is status underway.
Yeah, right.
Now, watch this, ready? Something. What do we get there?
Did you restart the...
No. I mean, that's happened because it's picking this one up, and possibly the other bits that I did like this are responsible for that. Actually, maybe our logic is such that if the question array isn't there, it just falls over or something. Let's see what happens now when I do this. Create the test. No, same thing. But yeah, definitely what is happening is when it's trying to, bless you, when it's trying to load in our database record, it's falling over now for some reason. And that is a different reason now that I put that in to what it was before. I reckon that one, string is not a subtype of type int index. Correct answer is supposed to just be an integer, whereas this one is an array. See that? Can I change that? Change the type? No. Delete correct answer. Nah, it didn't matter. Let's just get rid of this. All right. So, yeah, something's wrong. I think when it's trying to load.
I can play with that too later.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I might go in a little bit. But if it is something that's wrong with that, something we could do is like this here. If this is where it's failing, which I think it might be the case, we should have some error checking really like this. And the easiest way to do this, you know, and a good way to do it is if we put all of this inside a try, and there we go. And then we catch any exceptions that happen. It didn't want the type definition there. I'm not exactly sure why, but now see this, see here it's saying test is undefined now. And that's because now I've moved this line inside of this block, but the return is outside of that. What I can do is I can take the definition of this outside, so it's now at the same layer again, all right? But I can still, now that variable exists out in this scope, and I can still set it down here, like a, so, but I've moved the definition of that variable up, and now that's happy. For now, we're kind of debugging. It would be good to create some kind of error handling thing, but for now, we're just going to do this. We're just going to go print. And we'll do this as well. We'll go test equals null. We don't actually need to do that. It's going to be null by default, but it's not bad to put that line in there. That's sort of, if you're reading this code, it just saves you from thinking about the fact that test would be null anyway. Sometimes that's can be a good idea. So I'm expecting to see something happen here and not get the red screen. Yeah, and that's exactly what happened. So Flutter has this built-in thing where if an exception happens and it's not handled, it displays it on a red screen. So we're seeing this string is not a subtype of int index. So somewhere here, one of the properties of the data, we're trying to assign it to an int index, I think. And instead we've got a string. Actually, I don't actually know what that is. I'm going to just like kind of play with this a little bit here. If I get rid of that int answer. So the whole thing's still working now, right? Like it still refreshes. I got the same error there, which just tells me that wasn't the problem. I think if I do this, it should work. So that was it. What did I just delete then? Questions. So whatever we had in questions was not the right kind of data that probably that this constructor was expecting.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. But we do have a different error now. We're saying no for each, or for each was called on null. But now what I can do is I can start making this logic a little bit more robust. So instead of like here, where, so I think that's probably where that's failing. That's probably the only for each in there, right? So it's going, my programming logic is saying, get me the questions field and then loop through it, okay? But I don't have a questions field, so my code now says null.forEach, which is not valid. That's what this error is. So I can protect against that, but also say it's all right if we don't have any questions by saying if a data, just really quickly, best dart. no, whatever. I'm actually going to do it just like this. If data questions is not equal to null, then do all this stuff. And what this is doing, I've made a variable that I called questions. Where's questions defined? Oh, right here. Okay. Questions is an array of Psi test questions. By default, we initialize it to being an empty array. If questions is null in the database, then questions in our local variable will remain null. That should all just work fine. Now we've got a different error here. You tried to call length on null, and that's down here. The number of questions answered, we can't refer to. Yeah, but do you know what? I've actually, in this place, I've used data questions. Here, I've just used the variable questions. And actually, if I just change this to use the variable questions, that actually, I think, should fix that up. Invalid value range is empty, -1. So what's happened here, questions.length is 0, and then you subtract 1 from it, and you're trying to refer to position -1, which isn't valid. I think that's what's happening.
Because the length is 0.
Yeah. So there's a couple of ways we could do it. Yeah, I think I'll do the same. Oh. Actually, it's sorry. They're current question. No, we'll just do this. We'll say.
Well, Chris, would it make sense to just put in some dummy questions every time we create a new?
That could be an approach. Yeah, we're starting to get into how is this actually going to work in the case of, and so what should happen if there are no questions? I feel like current question should probably be null then. So I might actually do something like this. I might say, if length is greater than 0, then get the question. Otherwise, return null. And now we're actually happy. There's a test underway and you're the receiver. That doesn't sound right, though. But the reason it's doing that is because our check to see if we're the receiver is here. It says, get my current role, and if I'm the sender, then do a current test button. But the way it knows if I'm a sender, if we go back to this bit here, create the test from the Firestore thing, it actually goes and it says, check the sender property on the database record.
Okay.
Which
we haven't provided.
Which isn't set. Yeah.
Okay.
I think I might leave it there, brother, and I might let you have a go at that one.
Yeah.
Because yeah, you kind of drill into, like, yeah, creating the questions is going to be a more interesting bit, but I'll just like a big hint for you here. And look, feel free, leave that one as a reference, but keep the rest of it kind of tidy, I guess, while we're doing this, just for the simplicity of debugging. But yeah, in this code, in the block where we're, updating the database, keep in mind, we don't need, you had to get the user ID, but everything else that we're putting on here should actually come from the event.test. Okay, so this should be kept up to date with the actual information. So you should actually be able to go and code this entire thing to make, you know, this entire object like this.
Ah.
So you
And I
don't.
just need to learn. I need to figure out how to get those. Use the API and stuff to get those.
Oh yeah,
websites.
look, don't worry about that part necessarily yet.
Okay.
But this one, for example, the sender and the receiver, you don't need to know if this is being called from the sender screen or the receiver screen, because those are both setting, when they do that create, they're setting the test record in the test object in the particular way. So all you need to do is actually look at the Psi test object and get the oh no, you do, sorry, no, my bad. So on the Psi test there is a my role, okay? So you do actually, what you'll want to put a little bit of logic in here where you say, if my role is the sender, then set the sender field. If my role is the receiver, then set the receiver field. You could do that something like this. I'm going to undo this and let you do it, but you could do something like var sender or string, do the same thing. Sender equals, we could say if event.test.myRole Psi test sender, is that right? Psi test role, what is this? Look at other code that is setting
Psi
that.
test.myRole.
What is it? What is it? Here we go. This one, Psi test role.sender. So if my role is the sender, then set the sender to my ID, right? Otherwise blank. And you could say string.receiver equals the opposite. If that is receiver, then that, otherwise blank. And then down here, you just go set the sender to sender. Set the receiver to receiver.
And then it'll send nothing if it'll.
Yeah. This is a shorthand, this thing. I really like this. And actually Dart has all kinds of other ones that I'm not familiar with yet. But this says, if this is true, return this, otherwise this. So it's really nice on these one-line assignments. If my role is the sender, then make the sender variable be set to user ID, otherwise set it to blank. But I'm not going to save that. I will push the other stuff I've done, but I'll let you do that one. And just kind of another thing to point out that might be helpful. This here in this Psi test block, this is where we take the test object that's in the app and we put it into the database, right? So we're doing a little bit of manipulating of it because it's not the exact same thing in the database as it is in the app. The opposite of this is over here in this live Psi test stream. And this is the thing that takes, like this gets called with the document snapshot, and this takes as data exactly what you get here, and it uses that to make the app test object. So you'll see kind of the opposite logic in here, my role, okay? And up here, we set my role by going, I've got this IAM variable. I say, if the sender is equal to my ID, then I am the sender. Otherwise, I am the receiver. So that's, you know, kind of the flip side of the logic that's in here. And the reason we do that is because our representation in the database is different to our representation in the app. And we could have modeled that differently too, but this seemed to make more sense. This is the way we want to think about a test in the app, is from the user's perspective.
Okay. Yeah, cool. I'll give it a go today.
I'd like to kind of review what we've done. That's the main thing. What's all this about? Oh, try catch. It looks like a lot of changes because we wrapped it in a try catch block, which effectively means all of these lines are changed. I might also do this. Where is it? Where is that create? Where's that try catch? Oh, that was in here, not in there. I'm going to do this too. And what we might do is put in, you know, kind of wrap the whole app inside a stream where we've got, you know, another type of block which handles errors. And so here we would just like fire the error event, and it, you know, it's going to pick it up and do it. But maybe, you know, we'll have a little bit of a think about what we want to do there. You kind of go, when might this kind of thing happen? Well, if this database, you know, or in the future, we might want to change the way the database is structured, and we don't want everything to break then. So what do we do then? And maybe, you know, in this case, we would say, oh, I found an old type of test that is not the way they work anymore. Sorry, you know. Oh
yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, for now, this is quite all right, and we, you know, are working on having the right situation. I'd like to say work in progress commit when it's partway through. The other thing we did? Just looking at it. Oh, yeah. So, look, we might as well bring this into master branch as well now. So change over and work on master. Because we're not needing to do any branching. We're not learning about that. It's just quicker and easier and fine to work on master.
Okay.
Git merge. If you're ever doing something like normally we would work on other branches. This one, I think it's fun and simple to do that. But if you're ever not sure about what you're doing, just create a new branch and then push it up to, yeah.
Okay.
All right. Any questions?
No, I think I'll go back to the video and refresh.
Cool. All right. Well,
I did want to ask you whether you would possibly have time on Tuesday or Wednesday next week. So in a few days' time. I might be able to do another nighttime, like your nighttime